There you go, sir. Some gloves on before we start work.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Before we get started on the headlining, we remove the seats to ease access. The roof of the Golf makes a useful space to lay out all the bits and pieces that we're going to be using, so we protect it with an old blanket.
Right, well, these are all the pieces we need for our headlining. So we've got all the bits that go on, all the B pillars, A pillars, C pillars, and hopefully we can work out where they're all going to sit. But also we have a whole load of new metal stays as well. They obviously sit inside the roof. Now, the problem we've got is that normally when you change a headline, you have the original headlining, or at least bits of it, to use as some kind of pattern. But more crucially than that, you'll also have the stays in the right position at the right length. Now, these are all the same length. I suspect we're going to have to cut them down to get them all to sit correctly, but we have no pattern and no idea where they're supposed to go. So the first thing we're going to do is fit all of these, and then the idea is then we can hopefully make sure that we can shorten them so they sit beautifully in the roof, and then we can start actually attaching them to the roof itself. Right, so these little chaps here, as we know, go into there. Now what's interesting, you see, they are way too long. I mean, that's a good few centimetres. Now looking at the roof, you can see we've got this little groove in the sort of the insulation. So actually, I mean, when you look how far along, it's really quite tight, isn't it? So if you actually put that out like that, push it in, so it kind of emulates the same thing, and it gives us a mark of about there. So that actually has to go in really, really tightly. Yeah. So I think we need to do it on each of them, and then we'll just cut that trim there. And it's going to sit on that little shelf of metal there as well. So I'll go to the side. I think we'll be happy with that. Let's hope your cutters are up to the job. Maybe line it up in that groove. So the next stage, once this is finished, is to thread each of these. Now we know which position they're going to be in through our headlining, and then put the headlining back into position. And what I've done, I've left the clips all on one side of the car, and on the other side, we'll actually put the clips in as we go. Let's just see if this one fits. Put it on the padding. Cool. Nice. Brilliant. Right, so the next thing we need to do is actually establish where the centre line is on the front and the rear of our roof, then do the same thing on the car so we can keep everything aligned. And probably the quickest way is actually just to fold it onto itself, like so. Just put these ends together. Let's hope they're pretty close to being symmetrical. At this stage, I don't know how much we're going to have to pull through. Just put a little mark on there.
We then repeat the process on the other end of the headlining before we mark the same centerline on the car itself.
Right, so it's the same procedure around the back of the car as well. Of course, the seal tailgate is in the way, so get rid of that. Now the good news is I've actually got some reference points here with the hinges, so it's slightly easier to measure up. Right, so the next thing we can now do is unfurl our roof again, and now we're going to slip in our little rods. So we need to keep them in order. So let's just get the last one first. Right, I'll take it to you. Yeah. Start at this end perhaps. So let's just pop that into there like so. And then we're just going to try and feed that. Yeah. So having now got all our rods in position, the next thing to do is actually get the tension right. So the first thing we're going to do is actually pull this rod at the front as far forward as it'll go in its little slot. Then we can then clamp the headlining to the windscreen frame, or at least to that front edge of the metal. And then what we'll do is we'll start kind of getting the tension all the way to the back. We can then clamp the rear of our headlining to the metalwork of the car, but of course then we need to make sure that our centre lines all match up front and rear. So we're getting there. So just going to offer this up And you can see we're just a little bit over this side, so we need to track the whole headlining in that direction. So if you give it a bit of a tug over there, hopefully it'll go. So now what we need to do is get a little bit more tension along the front in sort of the outward direction, but at the same time also up a little bit as well. So we're tensioning it along the line of the headlining, but also on the way towards the outside of the car. All the way along here, just trying to maintain tension as I go. Of course, eventually this is going to be glued in position, but until we get it exactly right, these clips are very, very handy. Right, so it's looking better as a start. So now what we need to do is go through every single little spar there and actually kind of tension them, make sure that they're still centralised a little bit, and also we'll just work our way all the way to the back and then make sure that the back is centred and then taut, and hopefully it'll take a long time, but it's going to get better and better and better. And before we try and tension things from front to back, I'm just going to make sure our position on the rear here, actually that's looking pretty good. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to clamp one clamp in the middle, just so we have a little frame of reference. And then we'll tighten from the front all the way to the back. Right, well actually, it's not looking too bad. There's something a little bit squiffy at the back there, so have a look at that. But also, I think we're slightly, so this needs to go slightly further forward on that side, but this side here needs to go slightly further back. So we just need to do a bit more adjustment and things. But I think it's actually not going too badly considering we've only just started this. I think the other thing is, it's nice and warm in here in the workshop, but it's possibly not warm enough. We are in the middle of a Norwegian winter, which is quite chilly. So if there's any way you can crank up the heat in the workshop.
Yeah, no problem.
That'd be cool. Okay, so while we're waiting for that to warm up, and we'll do some more fettling later on, shall we crack on with the engine for a bit? Brilliant.